Weekend game plan here on TSN 690. Habs Breakfast. John Lou joining us on the phone. Amanda Stein here in studio. Habs play preseason today in Ottawa. 3 o'clock start. 1 o'clock the pregame. Mitch Gallo and Jay Farrar will bring you that pregame, and then Dan and Sergio on the broadcast at 3 o'clock. Now, no practice yesterday, so we don't know the lineups. Amanda, you and I were just talking prior to the break. You assume maybe, possibly, could be Mr. Montoya in nets?
Yeah, I think we haven't seen him in a little bit, and we saw Mike Condon in the last game get the full stretch. John, I'd imagine that might be the way going forward, that we're going to see goalies, especially, looking for this backup, which I imagine will end up being Al Montoya, getting the full game, the full 60 minutes going forward.
Yeah, if not the full 60, probably 2 of 3 periods, yeah. Amanda. And the thing, too, is that you really need to see what Montoya can do with this team. And granted, he still doesn't have the full lineup in front of him. But the fact is that he's the one other goalie in the Canadian system on a one-way contract. And so it's like, well, they're a very clear sign that he's going to be Carey Price's backup. And so you really want to give him as many reps as possible, because if the Canadians really do intend on lightening Carey's workload, then you got to be sure that the backup is going to be the guy that's going to perform at a high level, like we've seen Peter Budaj do in stretches, and Alex Ault before him. But it's absolutely imperative that they ensure that their backup is a steady and a high caliber performer, because they just can't take the risk with Carey anymore. The type of workload that he handled prior to last season, that's and so you got to believe that there's been wear and tear that occurred to that knee. We saw the results last season. You can't take chances with that, especially with your franchise, and the fact that if you want him to stick around, he's heading into the final 2 years of his contract, and you got to be sure that all pieces of the puzzle are intact, and that's Price's health, his performance level, the team around him. They have to know what they have in order to ensure that moving forward he will want to stay, and that they will want to keep him for the long term.
John Lou joining us on Habs Breakfast here on Weekend Game Plan with Matthew Ross and Amanda Stein also in studio. Speaking of Carey Price, yesterday on Melnick in the Afternoon, Habs goaltending coach Stein weighed in with Carey Price and potentially how many games he could play.
That's why that's very important to have a very good backup, and I don't want Carey to play 65, 70 games. That's too much not just for Carey, for any number one goalie in the league. That's too much. So we've got a number in mind, but like I said, the most important thing is the communication, how you feel. And every day we got that communication between Carey and I.
So there you go. Now, we talked about the one-way contract for Montoya. There's absolutely no way, right? Even if he stinks, would they even entertain bringing someone in? I mean, it's a foregone conclusion, right? You sign a guy to a one-way deal. You got these other guys like Condon and Lindgren and Fucali. Nobody's going to really bump him out, right, at the end of the day?
Well, yeah, in an ideal world, that's correct, Matthew. But if in the first scenario that you presented, that if he really doesn't cut the mustard, then, hey, you know what? You can always put the guy on waivers, right? But I would imagine that in their vetting and in their talks and preparing to sign Al Montoya, that they would have done their due diligence to ensure that this is a guy that they believe in, that could carry a workload that's going to be probably 25% of the games. Because what we just heard from Stefan Wade, if the figure that they have in mind for Carey is around 60 games, then it's 1 in 4 starts. Al Montoya or whoever is going to have to be will have to be steady Eddie, right? So there's always an out. A short-term, low-cost deal like that, absolutely they have the waivers option. But do you want to go to your plan C, D, E? In an ideal world, again, certainly not. So, Amanda, just getting back to your first point, it's like I'd like to see Al Montoya as often as possible through the preseason, because quite honestly, how many games does Carey need to play?
Yeah.
Right?
Especially considering the World Cup.
Yeah, and that's my point, is that he's just gone through a high-caliber tournament, high-caliber hockey, and there really isn't anything that we need to see from Carey Price that says that he's ready, aside from him wanting to get 1 or 2 games or portions thereof behind his new teammates. Then again, his new teammate Shea Weber.
Yeah.
Well, mind you, the core around Shea Weber is a little bit better than what the Montreal Canadiens have. At the
you don't say.
Right?
You don't say.
9 captains? Yeah, I would think so.
Exactly.
John Liu joining us here on the program.
John, I'm wondering who else going forward in preseason you really have your eye on that you want to see more of.
Alexander Radulov.
Yeah.
The Tuesday when we saw him at work, not so much 5-on-5, but the power play is what really struck a chord in terms of how he's going to help this team. We saw it Tuesday, then we saw the converse to that on Thursday with Radulov out of the power play. Or out of the lineup on Thursday, the power play looked like it did last season.
Yeah, it did. You're right.
Like terrible entries, no cohesion, no flow. And granted, it's not the exact same personnel, but even so, when you saw Radulov on Tuesday and what he's capable of doing, whether he was on the half wall, drawing defenders to him, trying to open up shooting lanes or passing lanes, or sneaking onto the backdoor side on the left wing, or even quarterbacking a little bit from the point, if they allow him to do that, and I hope that they allow him to do that, because when you have a talent and somebody with that kind of vision and ability, it's like, well, the power play lacked imagination, and it was very static last season, and even the season prior. So when you have somebody like Radulov who can deal the way that he does, and that can use deception, that can use skill, that can disrupt a penalty kill, well then why not let him freelance? Well, not freelance, but why not let him use his abilities to their utmost to try to keep that power play flowing? Because there was a lot of movement with the man advantage when he was on the ice. So I'd like to see more of that, and obviously that's something that they can't control. They can practice it all they want, but you can't control that, obviously, how many calls you're going to get in a game that are going to go in your favor. But, so power play, there were very positive signs there, but would like to see Radulov more 5-on-5, especially with his line mates, although I guess we won't see Andrew Shaw for the next 2 games as a result of his suspension. So
suspension, it's more like a break, right, Sean? I mean, he doesn't want to play preseason anyway.
Oh, I think most veterans know. But in Andrew Shaw's case, though, he's coming to a new market, a new team. He wants to get his feet wet and get acclimatized to his teammates, endear himself to his new hockey home. And so, in this instance, I think that he probably isn't crazy about missing games simply because this is a unique situation for him. But all things being equal, veterans, they'd be like, okay, I don't have to play the preseason games, no problem, I'm fine with that. But so Shaw was another one that I was interested in seeing more of. But I think for the most part, you know what he's going to bring. He plays a simple, gritty game, and so it's the style of game that fits into a system very well. So there wouldn't be as many question marks there. Other players that I have my eye on are Nathan Beaulieu, to see what kind of ice time they give him in the preseason, and if he's given a heavier workload, how does that help him develop his game? How does it help him blossom? Because Michel Therrien admitted earlier this week that Jeff Petrie is going to get some. He's going to have some looks playing on the left side with Shea Weber, but I think a lot of people want to see Nathan Beaulieu on that position as well. A more natural fit, lefty-righty, but does he have the coaching staff's faith that he can log the minutes and take the responsibilities of playing beside Shea Weber?
And the other side of that, John, I think, is that if you have Beaulieu playing up to his potential and playing on that top pairing and giving a little bit of puck-moving ability to complement Weber, the other side of that is you're leaving Petrie with perhaps Markov, who could use perhaps a little bit of speed next to him.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. In principle, these all make sense to us, Matthew. These pairings. Because, like you said, you have a good fit puck mover in Beaulieu, steady defenseman, a defender with Weber. Markov, we know he's lost a step over the last couple of years. We've seen it, that there's a little bit of a decline in his speed and mobility, and so absolutely you need somebody beside him that's fleeter of foot, that can move the puck a little bit more swiftly. And Jeff Petrie, again, lefty-righty, natural fit. It makes sense, but again, the coaching staff, what they have in mind, clearly it's a little bit different from what the masses would tend to think. So maybe Beaulieu earns that spot beside Weber, and that would fulfill the promise for why he was drafted in the first place.
It would be nice, no question about it. It is Habs Breakfast here on Weekend Game Plan with Matthew Ross, Amanda Stein in studio, and John Liu on the phone. Last question, posing perhaps to both of you. Start with Amanda. Michael McCarron is somebody that everybody weighs in on. Anytime you get a guy who has a bit of touch, who's that large of an individual, particularly for the Habs, who historically haven't had these large guys, and maybe since Turner Stevenson. I mean, that's not exactly a huge goal scorer, or John LeClair, these kind of guys. What have you seen from him that tells you that he's ready to play in the NHL? And where do you want to see him? We'll start with Amanda.
Well, I don't necessarily know that I'd like to see him in their lineup, particularly in their last game, what we saw from him, that individual effort, scoring that goal. I asked Michel Therrien after, is that exactly what you want to see from him? And it's yes, he's become smarter. He's become a little bit quicker. He has that great quote where he said, when he's not moving his legs, he's a bit of a slug out there or a lug out there. You can definitely see that. But when he is engaged, when he's using his body properly, that is the ideal missing piece that Montreal has been looking for a while. I'm not saying he's going to score 30, 20 goals, but he brings a new element that's been missing from the lineup for a while. I'd like to see him in the lineup for Montreal, but I don't know, given the salary cap, given the numbers of who's on what contracts, whether it's going to be possible to fit him into the mix.
John?
Well, there are a lot of guaranteed contracts on the books right now, and so if they were going to find a place for McCarron, they probably would have to put a veteran on waivers, somebody on a short-term contract. They would have to dangle him, send him down to the AHL. To be honest with you, I don't really know what the coaching staff thinks in terms of McCarron's camp so far. If he has earned a spot in the lineup, or he might stay up as a 13th forward. We don't know that, but. In principle, a player like McCarron definitely, there's a place for him in the Canadiens lineup. Certainly size, willingness to mix it up, a little bit of grit. Once he develops a little bit more NHL experience, I think that he could be a very effective penalty killer. Probably not a power play person unless they wanted to, second unit screen, a very large screen, because he has pretty decent hands down low, too. Mm-hmm. We've seen that. So there are some tantalizing elements to his game that could make him a regular in this lineup. I just have the sense that it's just not right now, that he would probably be on the short list of one or two first or second call-up in the event of injuries, although depending on whether it was a top six or bottom six player that was injured, that would determine which guy is going to come up from the A. But, at this point, I'd probably have to say I'm 50-50 in whether or not he has earned a place in the lineup at this point coming out of camp.